All right, so let's get started. I got a brand new bike. This one's from Jansno. This is the X60. Now, if you guys haven't been to my channel yet, I've actually reviewed two bikes from Jansno already. I did the X50, and I thought that was a great bike for the price. It was a very, very budget bike. And then we did the X70, and that was a dual battery setup on 34 amp hours, so you got a lot of range out of that bike. Now let me give you some quick specs on the X60 I have sitting in front of me, which you're seeing on the screen right now. You're either gonna love it or hate it, but here is some information. This is a 48 volt bike with a 23 amp hour battery. It goes up to 28 miles per hour, and you have dual motors on it. They're both 750 with a peak of 1500 watts in total. This gives you 120 Newton meters of torque. You can fit someone on this thing at 330 pounds. It has a max range of 80 plus miles if you ride in a lower pedal assist, and it's coming in right under $1,300, but I could save you guys some money with the links and discount codes down in the description. But without further ado, let's start on the details of this bike, working our way from the front to the back. Now the tires that they include on this bike are Arison, and they're 20 inches tall, 4 inches wide. You can air these things up anywhere from 15 to 30 PSI. I love the tread pattern of these tires. I think it's one of the nicest tires I've actually seen. They're pretty decently thick, and those tires are attached to a mag wheel, which is gonna be a little bit more heavier than your spoke design wheel, but they're gonna be more durable. And attached to that is your 750 watt motor in the front. Again, we have another one in the back, so we have a dual motor setup on here. And then we have 180 millimeter rotors with DY island brakes. This bike comes with plastic fenders front and back. Your cable management in the front isn't too bad. I added a few extra zip ties myself to kind of clean up the wiring. One great thing about this bike is they do give you turn signals front and back, and a nice big beefy headlight up in the front. We'll definitely have to test that out in a second video. And looking up on the top of the forks, we get no adjustment, so that is kind of a negative, where you don't have any preload or compression that you can adjust. You do, however, get a lot of spacers in the handlebar setup, so you can put these bars lower and put the spacers on top depending on how you want your handlebars to sit. Moving on up to the top of the handlebar setup, you can see our DY island hydraulic brakes. You can also see that we have a fine thumb screw adjustment, so you can kind of tighten and loosen those depending on how you like your brake handles to feel. So especially if they start feeling loose, definitely start tightening that in. And then looking at the grips, they're kind of cheap. They're hard plastic. Next to that is very nice. We get a dedicated button to turn the front wheel on and off. So if you just want to go in rear wheel drive, that's how you're going to get your 80 miles of range. Underneath that is your turn signal left and right. And then below that, you get a horn button. And then next to that, we get a bunch of buttons. So we get a plus and minus. You can see there's a little foot on the bottom, minus, so that's to walk the bike. Then you have a dedicated headlight button. Push that to turn the headlights on and off. Then you hold the power button to turn the display on. Now to fully turn the actual display on, you have NFC, so you have to put the NFC chip onto the screen. And I noticed that sometimes it's quick and sometimes it's very slow. You guys can see that in my practice. On one time I got it pretty quick, and then the other time I got it and it took me a while to kind of get it registered. And then underneath that power button, you do get an I button, and that's to go through all your modes. So you can see your average speed. They also have voltage on the screen, and then you have a bunch of other stuff that you can look at based on your ride and what you want to see. On the right hand side of the handlebars, you have the standard traditional Shimano 7-speed. Those are on almost every single e-bike out there nowadays. And you have a half twist throttle and the same grip you had on the left side, basically just cut in half. Now the most interesting thing about this bike is how the battery is set up. You're gonna see that we do have a 23 amp hour battery, 1,104 watt hours. Charging voltage goes up to 54.6 volts, and it is a 13S 8P. Now to charge that battery, you're looking at 2 amps max, so it's not a lot. It's gonna take roughly about 6 hours to charge that battery from dead to full. You do have this little flip up lever right here where you can kind of access the keys to remove the battery from the bike if you want to go charge it inside. You also have your charging port right there as well. One thing that I wasn't a huge fan about this setup is that if you do have your keys and you want to not put them in your pocket, or you have nowhere to put them, maybe you don't have pants, I have a pocket, you can't put the keys into that slot and close the cover. So the cover is going to stay wide open if you're trying to keep the keys on you. And again, you have NFC, so you have to have the NFC somewhere in your pocket or hide it somewhere because you need that that to turn the screen on. Now let me show you how to take this battery out. All you have to do is turn the keys to the off position and it will undo the latch, and then just use the handle that's built into the battery to pull it straight out. Now with the battery straight out, you can see all the room that we have down there. There is a plate on the very bottom that has a couple screws that you can take that off. If you really want to put like a custom battery in there, you definitely could. Here's a look at that rear suspension. Innovation, technology, design. Right above the suspension is where you have the controller box, and then your seat right above that, which is a standard traditional seat they've had on every single Jansno bike so far. It feels decent, but we'll definitely have to see how this thing feels when we go and ride it. In the very back of the bike, you get a working brake light with turn signals as well, with a license plate bracket. Now the whole brake light doesn't light up when you hit the brakes. You only have one top little light that pops on. Below all that is where you have a plastic fender right above the tire, and it doesn't go all the way back. It's kind of a half fender and it flares up towards the back. Then you can see our mag wheel with our 750 watt motor. There are some labels on there if you want to screenshot that to the motor. Then you can see our Shimano 7-speed right there with our Shimano Churney derailleur and our derailleur guard, and then you can also see the cable to disconnect the motor running right off of that. Getting into the bike's weight, this thing is 88.1 pounds without the battery, and it is 95 pounds with the battery. And they say this bike is for people anywhere from 5'4" up to 6'4", and I will say you do want to be a taller rider because this seat is non-adjustable, and it does feel like I sit pretty high on it, as you can see in this clip right here. And I was trying to put my feet down as much as possible, but I do feel like if you are probably about 5'5" or 5'6", you're probably gonna be on the very cutting edge of getting on this bike. But if you're any taller than 5'7", you should have no problem riding this bike whatsoever, up to probably what they say about 6'4". All right guys, so I think that should be everything you guys need to know about this bike before we take it out for a spin and use our action camera to actually test it out, see if this thing's worth it by the end of this video, because it is a decently cheap bike for what it is, but you're also either gonna love and hate it. So I haven't even rode it yet. I know it said it had like 3-point-something miles on it, but trust me, I have not actually been on this thing yet. I don't know why it says it has 3 miles on it. I didn't ride it, someone rode it. But anyways, this is gonna be our first ride. Let's go and get out there and have some fun. All right, so we're on the action cam. Let's turn this bad boy on. And you're gonna notice if you don't use the NFC, you can also put a password in here. Now, I tried to get the information for the display and they gave me a link, but I couldn't get access to it. I had to get approved, and I didn't get approved before doing this video. So I don't know what password they have in here if you want to use it, but I'm pretty sure once you get it turned on, you go into the advanced settings and you can change this password just in case you want to use it NFC. And hey, I got it pretty fast that time. Cool. So I got the keys in my left pocket and the NFC in my right pocket, and now it's time to go. All right, so here are some things to know if you didn't. You can put it in 0, and if you put it in 0, there is no motor activated whatsoever. You can't use a throttle, you can't pedal. You do have to put it in either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The throttle is not going to give you all the power, even if you just put it in 1. Some bikes are like that. This bike isn't. It also has an indicator to let you guys know that you hit the brakes. And let's go from a light. See how powerful this thing is. Definitely feels like it has like 120 newton meters of torque. Definitely over 100 for sure. Yeah, this thing is definitely moving, and it said you can go up to about 28 miles per hour, but I'm seeing way more than that. And I was kind of expecting that with two 750 watt motors. Now I'm really curious to see what our top speed is going to be. And keep in mind I have both motors activated. If I do put it in just one motor, let's see how fast we go. Let's slow down just a little bit and floor it. Let's see if we can meet that max speed. I don't think we can though. I think if you use one motor, you're gonna stay roughly at about 28 miles per hour, maybe a little bit more. It feels like it's still going. This is off maybe 1.5 miles per hour. So dang, okay, it's still moving. I still don't think you're gonna get that max speed though unless you're using both motors, but that's pretty good to see 30 miles an hour with one motor. And now with one motor getting up to speed, this does feel like a regular 750 watt bike with 80 newton meters of torque. It doesn't feel like it has that much power, but let's see how it feels when I switch this motor on as we're riding. 28 miles an hour. Oh yeah, you get a little tiny bit more noise because that front motor is now activated, and it definitely starts picking up speed. Now I've noticed already, I know we haven't went very far, I have my speed meter up here, so it's gonna measure my miles and our max speed. It hasn't left 100%. Now a real gauge would have already went down like maybe 98 or 97%, but we're still at 100. The next thing I wanna do is see where ghost pedaling starts. So right now I'm connected, still connected, just pedaling like a normal person. My knees are coming up pretty high, so if you're a tall person, it's gonna feel awkward. Okay, it was right around 19 to 20 miles per hour, and after that, I'm pretty much just moving them casually just to get that cadence sensor working, just to give me all the power. All right, we're pulling up to our speed test. We're gonna do this one time with throttle only, then we'll come back and use the pedals. Let's see how fast this bike goes. If it goes over 27 miles an hour before I reach this stretch of road, then it's on the faster side of e-bikes. I think it is because we have 1,500 watts of power. Without further ado, let's go. Now you get a little bit of chirp out of the front and definitely hitting 10 miles, 15 miles, 20 miles an hour quick. Just a few seconds, that's very fast. Now 28 already, wow, yeah, we were jamming. 31, 32. Brakes work really good too. Yeah, that was about 32 miles per hour using the throttle. All right, we're back. We're gonna try the pedals out. Here we go. I am in gear 1. 1, 2, 3, go. Go, go. Late response. Definitely does not give you the power right off the bat. It takes a little bit for that sensor to start reading, but then the controller just doesn't give you all the beans. But here we go. Now we got the power. We're going. Ghost pedaling already. And if we're gonna reach over 27 miles an hour, no. So it's definitely a bit slower if you use the pedals trying to get up to speed. So if you just wanna haul ass, use the throttle. All right, let's do this test one more time. I'm going to take the front motor power off, so now we're only in rear motor, and let's see how it does. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, definitely a huge difference to the start. Oh yeah, I'm really curious to see what our speed's gonna be when we reach the end. 20, 22. All right, so after 20, it doesn't seem like it picks up that fast after that. But there we go, it's actually almost the same speed as just using the pedals with both motors, because you have a very late delay when using the pedals. The biggest thing I'm noticing on this bike after putting a few miles on it, not even 4 miles, is that on a smooth road, this thing doesn't feel bumpy, lumpy, nothing. Like these tires feel absolutely phenomenal. Even when I was turning, just going around stuff, these are some badass tires. I really knew I was gonna like them when I saw them, and they're just handling perfectly on the road. Now when I hit a little bit of bumps, yeah, it's a little bit of a bumpy bike. It's not the most, comfortable bike I've been on, but I feel like they made a good choice with these tires. These things are absolutely awesome. And the power of this thing, man, you got to be careful when going around a turn like this, so it will definitely start peeling out. All right, we're in our designated hill test, baby. We're gonna start right at the bottom with both motors. Actually, you know what? Let's do this first. Let's try it in single motor first. Let's just see if the rear motor will do it by itself. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. I am not using the pedals. Nope, nope, nope. Oh, it cut out. It cut all my power. So it will not do it on a single motor. So that amps on the controller can't be that high. I'll have to switch over to that and see what the amps of this controller is, because as of right now, I really don't know. So anyway, let's turn on that second motor. Throttle only, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Whoa. Oh. Oh, oh, oh. Definitely losing traction on the front, but it definitely picked us up that hill, no problem. Now let's see if the pedals will do any different. So here we go, 1, 2, 3. And if it's not gonna make it, I'm gonna have to use a throttle. Oh, here we go, here we go. The power's activated. Again, no throttle. Hey, it made it. That was in dual motor, just keep in mind, but definitely a lot slower if you want to use the pedals. So without further ado, anyway, we're already in the dirt. Let's see how it is. I'm just going with the throttle, go as fast as possible. Ooh, these tires aren't really made to go off-road. Ooh, had to slow down a little bit. I feel like they're gonna slip out. Ooh, surprisingly, woo, it's Surprisingly pretty solid bike so far. I thought it was gonna be more bumpier than that, but that handled pretty well. Oh, yeah, definitely be a little bit careful with that front tire slipping out. Ooh, up a hill, down a hill. Ooh, oh, definitely get a lot of chain slap from this bike. So if you don't like that, you might want to put a little cover on the back frame just to prevent that noise from happening, or just get used to it. But yeah, no, this bike is handling like a basic smooth off-road trail. There's a few bumps and twigs and rocks here and there, but nothing crazy. And this does not feel bad. Oh, we just hit a spider web. That's great. Huge one too. Woo! Brakes sliding in the dirt. These things do not grip up in the dirt whatsoever. You can always change out these tires if you think you're gonna ride in the dirt more so than the street. And I gotta say, woo! Other than the noise I'm hearing from the bike, it is not that bad off-road. I mean, I'm going over some really rough stuff, and it's really not bad. It's just, I don't like all that noise going on. It makes the bike feel very cheap. But I'm gonna give this thing a 7 out of 10 because it's holding its own out here. And these tires are aired up to 25 PSI. So we are hauling ass, feeling great. My body doesn't hurt other than my hands because these grips are just, I don't know, there's no cushion to them whatsoever. They are just rock solid. I might as well just be holding on to the handlebars at this point. But again, you can change out those handlebar grips very easy. 15 bucks on Amazon, or just get some nice $40 or $50 gloves, and those will have some cushion in them. And I just saw that our battery bars went down. We went to 83% out of 100, and then when I braked, it went back to 100. Now, next thing I like to do on these tests is the turning test. And that basically just consists of, you know, me going back and forth with the bike. How does the front end feel? And it doesn't feel like your standard traditional bike. It almost does, but it feels like it's almost, there's a lot of weight over the front wheel, or the wheel is too far in the back instead of being a little bit farther out. So it doesn't feel terrible turning. It just kind of feels a little off compared to the average e-bike out there. You can make U-turns on this bike, no issue. The handlebars definitely go pretty wide, so you can make U-turn very easily. Next test I gotta do is a braking test. We're gonna do it at 28 miles an hour. I'm gonna try to hold that speed the best as possible. And here we go, 1, 2, 3. Woo, we slid, boy. Definitely felt these tires just sliding all over the place, but it still braked behind the line. If it stops behind this white line right here, if you can see it, it's on the better side of e-bikes. So I have had some bikes that stop way out there. So these brakes are doing a great job. Now, they would have stopped a little bit better if they were 203 millimeter rotor, but they would have been way worse if they were 160 millimeter rotors. I feel like since these brakes are kind of in between having a big rotor and a small rotor, I feel like they did a perfect job. These definitely stopped this bike perfectly fine. I'm not having a single issue out here with them. Now let's do a burnout. All you have to do is lift that front tire up just enough to get that tire to lose traction. You can do some fat burnouts. Now let's get on to the noise of this bike. Now, it's actually not that loud. Now, it's not a quiet bike. It's not like a direct hub motor, but it is very silent, I would say, especially for having 2 motors. It's not as loud as I thought it was gonna be, so I'm very happy with that. Depending on how you like to ride, if you want a completely silent bike, this won't be for you. But if you want a bike that's a little bit on the noisier side so people can probably hear you, whatnot, like that lady probably should have heard me and, you know, got out of the way because she's on the wrong side. You're supposed to ride and walk on the right side of the road. I don't know if people know that or not. Now, coming up this thing is doing a very good job, no issues. What do you expect? 2 motors, it's gonna definitely climb hills, no issues. Doesn't even feel like it's struggling at all. Some bikes you can hear that motor struggling to get up a hill. I don't hear it on this one. Now let's see how fast this bike is coming downhill. Very curious to see if we hit any more max speed than what we've already hit. And looking like 33 miles an hour, 33.8 on here. So now the speed is almost kind of accurate. because before when we started, it was roughly off like a mile to a mile and a half. But I think they did a pretty good job of almost matching these perfectly. Not too bad. We've done 6.6 miles, and it's saying under throttle, we lost 1 battery bar out of the 5, so we're down to 4, and we're at 78%. But when I let off, it goes to 100. So it's going off a voltage sag right there. It's not the most accurate reading. So what we need to do is come over here to our voltage, and our voltage says we were at 49.4 volts. Now we can go down to about 38 volts, but realistically, once you hit 40, don't push it. You are pretty much dead, and you are gonna kill the bike and be stranded. So once we're by about 40 volts, it's about time to make sure you are like a mile or 2 away from your house. And let's go into the amps real quick, and our amps don't show up. So let me let off and get back on it. And yeah, our amps do not show up, so I still don't know what the amps of the controller is, so I couldn't tell you that information, so sorry about that. But I didn't see it online unless I completely missed it on their website. The next thing I like to do is the pedal response and the throttle response. We'll do this very quickly. Here we go with the throttle, 1, 2, 3. Very instant, and it gives you all the power. 1, 2, 3. Yep, and it jolts you back too. The whole front end lifts up. Doesn't come off the ground, but it definitely lifts back. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so I like that. But if you use the pedals on the other hand, let's do that. 1, 2, 3. Now the power is coming in, but it's like 200 watts, 300 watts. I wonder if we can see what our wattage. Okay, so our wattage doesn't display on here either. Now, I don't know why they had that as an option, and they don't show you the amps or the wattage on here. So I'm gonna do that test one more time and show you that there is a little bit delay with pedaling. 1, 2, 3. Now the power is coming on. That's like a 2 or 3 second delay. And I really wish I knew what power is giving us, but it's not giving us all the power. So if you really want to save your battery, ride in like pedal assist 1 or 2 and pedal, and you'll definitely get a lot of range out of this bike. Now, another thing you guys might want to know is that when you do get done pedaling, after your pedal is done, the power stays on the bike for about half a second. It's nothing crazy, but it's just something that you need to note, that when you're on the power and you let off and you think all the power is gonna stop completely, it doesn't. It stays on for just a brief second. The next thing we gotta test out is the horn. Let's see how that is. It's decently loud, it's not too bad. It's not a real horn, but it's actually decently loud compared to other things I've heard. It doesn't sound cartoonish or anything like that. Sounds decent. Next thing I want to try out is the walk mode. Let's try this out and see how fast it goes. Oh, damn, okay. All right, so if we're walking with the bike, it does about 4 miles an hour. All right, not too bad, just so you know what speed that is if you want to walk it. Now let's turn on our headlight, even though it is still daytime. If you do turn on the headlight on this bike, the display does dim down, so just keep that in mind. It gets a little darker, so it's not going to be blinding you at night. You can still go into the advanced settings and you can adjust how the brightness is on the screen if you want. I just kind of normally leave these bikes the way they come. I need to get out of wattage because wattage doesn't tell me anything. All right, so it tells me how long I've been out here on the bike, 32 minutes. And then our odometer is 11.7. And my trip that I'm currently on, because this bike had 3 miles on it for some reason when I got it in, I've done 8.3 miles of what the bike is saying. And on here it says 8.6. That's pretty damn accurate if you ask me. That's like really, really close. So that is great on them. They pretty much mash up the speed and the range as best as I've seen from an e-bike company, because most of the time you get 3 or 4 miles off from your trip in just 10 miles. So that is a very big improvement, the fact that you can rely on this to tell you the accurate range that you have went. And let's see, max speed has been 34.1 on here. My phone says 32.7. So the bike does tell you you're going a little tiny bit faster than where you're actually going, but this is a solid 32 mile per hour e-bike. And then once the battery starts going down, you can already notice we are at 30 miles per hour and I am at 61%, 3 battery bars left. So that means when we're probably gonna be close to about 30% on this bike, you'll probably be doing about 27 miles per hour, which is still really good. Now, one thing I want to mention before we get back to the house and I give you my final conclusion on this bike is I don't understand why they didn't put a cover on here. I think it would have been so nice to have like a flip cover, kind of like a Sur-Ron, on top of the battery. I don't know. I'm just not understanding why they didn't do it. Maybe it's just because you don't really need it technically, But I think it would have been cool if they had like a black cover, or maybe even a cover that matched the color of the bike. But I don't know. I guess if you want to look at your battery, you can. If you want to access the charging port while riding, you can. If you want to put your keys in there, you can. Just leave this flipped up, you can. I don't know. Whatever you want to do. I just think they should have had a cover. The one thing that is shocking me about this bike is how comfortable it is just riding it on a regular road. I really can't believe, like, it's kind of blowing my mind that it's, again, not the most comfortable bike I've been on, but if I had to give a rating on the street, I would say it's like an 8.5 out of 10. It's a pretty solid bike, and it feels like a solid bike when you're riding it, but it also like handles the road very good. The seat's comfortable. I'm not having a problem with the seat. But without me getting too deep into it, I'll see you guys back at the house and I'll give you my final conclusion. All right, guys, we're back into the garage. My final conclusion on this thing. So if you guys just skip to the end of the video, that's perfectly fine. So if you guys want to know my opinion on it, let's start off in the front. The tires, probably one of the best things on this bike. They're definitely more durable than those cheaper tires. You're not gonna get a flat as easy. I like the brakes from DY Island. Those have been some of the best brakes I've had on most bikes, and they're very cheap. So I'm always happy with those. The shifter felt perfectly fine. The half twist throttle is fine because it's the same size as the grip, so it's not hurting your hand. But I would have liked to seen a cruise control feature on this bike. The handlebar layout, I love it because you can turn that front motor off. It would have been nice if you can switch it to just front motor only, maybe if it once you want to pull it up a hill or something like that. So it would have been cool if that was like a triple switch or something, if that makes sense, where you can have the front one on, the back one off, the back one on, the front one off, and then turn both of them on if you want. Then the turn signals are great. No issues with those. They're definitely sequential, kind of very slow, but I mean, they look decently bright. You also have them in the back, but I don't think they're very bright in the back, but we'll do a second video on this bike when we ride it at night, as long as I come back and this bike doesn't have a flat, but I'm not too worried about that. The headlight button is, looked like the headlight was coming on, so I think this bike does have a sensor, because earlier when I was in the garage and it was kind of dark, it popped on and then it popped back off after I moved it. So I think it has a sensor to know to turn the headlight on and off, but you have that dedicated button right there to turn it on and off. What I wanted to tell you guys though is that I got back and the bike says we're at 86%. Over here it says that we did 10.2 miles. On my phone, it says we did 10.4 miles, so that is 100% accurate. And our voltage on this bike is 47.9, so I'll put the chart over here so you can see that we did 10 miles roughly, or 10 and a half, and that's the percentage of battery that we got left at. And you saw how I was riding if you watched the whole entire video. I didn't really ride slow. I was in pedal assist 5, going as fast as possible, and no issues. I feel like it has, you know, a decent battery in it. You're probably gonna get maybe 25 miles of range, and you could probably get 40 plus if you go and pedal and go into pedal assist 1 or 2 and ride at about 10 miles an hour. Moving on to the seat, very comfortable. Every single Jansno bike I've got uses exactly the same seat, the same material, same brown, everything. So I'm pretty much thinking they're just moving it from every single thing, and I've never had an issue with their seat. Now I do think it's a little weird they have this and it doesn't really match the frame. They should have put some covers on the side, I think, to hide like the controller box. So that's where we kind of get into the bike's fit and finish. I feel like if you guys saw this bike in person, the fit and finish on it isn't perfect. Now there was a lot of issues when I got this in. I had to tighten the battery rail because it came loose, but that could have been shipping because they shipped it to me upside down in the box. But I just look at little stuff on the bike, I'm like, okay, this could have been better, that could have been better. Like looking at the brake light matched up with the whole frame, it's crooked. It's not completely straight. It's at a slight angle, and that's the bracket that they welded onto the back. It's not completely straight, so when the taillight's bolted onto the back, it's at an angle. So I didn't really like that too much. The fender on the back's perfectly fine. It doesn't cover the whole tire, but it's definitely better than most. If you're looking at like a dirt bike or something, it'll only come up to here. So I'm not hating on that fender. It looks kind of cool. The motor, the power, that's probably one of the best things on this bike. It has a lot of good power, especially for the price. So I wasn't mad about that. Max speed about 32 miles an hour. I thought I was gonna go maybe 34 or 35 having both of these motors. Real quick, I should say, if you guys do use my links and discount codes in the description and you buy this bike, and your bike's not going as fast as mine, well, there's a little plug underneath this seat, and all you have to do is unhook that. Once you unhook those 2 wires, it basically unlocks it from 20 miles an hour, and now it can go as fast as possible. So that's all you have to do. If you don't see those 2 wires, you might have to take the seat off because it might be next to the controller, and yeah, that's all you have to do, and it's giving you all the power possible. Now, one thing I really want to touch on this bike really quick is the fact that this battery compartment, a lot of people aren't going to like how it's set up. up. You're not gonna light the stuff on the side. They also make a little bit of noise if you can hear this. So it's not the best material. You could probably put some foam back there or some rubber bushings or something to make that stop doing that. But the cool thing is you can customize that. So you can take them off, paint them and everything like that. But what I want to talk about is if you take the battery out, you have a lot of room on the bottom of the base. So this battery obviously has a connection on the very bottom, but you can remove that whole bottom section and you can make a custom battery for this thing to hook up to the stock controller. So you could put a way bigger battery in here if you really wanted. You just have to get the dimensions right and maybe have someone make it or find one on Amazon or something like that. I won't be able to help you. But the fact that you have a bunch of room way down here that's not being used, like it stops right here. You can use all this down here. You could fit a much bigger battery. So there's some customizations you can do to the bike. I'm personally not gonna do it, but I'm saying this is a good bike if you kind of wanted to, do your own kind of mods and whatnot. I feel like there's a lot of potential in this thing and it's a pretty cool bike. I'm not gonna say I fully recommend it just because the fit and finish feels like it needs to be a little tiny bit better for me. It felt a little tiny bit too cheap. But if you're just looking for cheap, fast power and maybe customize it with a bigger battery, then hey, all for it. But I'll see you guys in the next one. That's pretty much it. You guys are the true MVPs and I'm gonna get out of here, go edit this video for you guys. Be safe out there, wear some gear out there, get some Beyond Riders clothing, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. True MVPs, baby.